Welcome to Morning Brew on Politics Social. I'm Graham Hughes. You're very welcome to join the chat. All you need to do is you need to subscribe to the channel. And wait a minute. Wait a minute. Siska Edge and Martin Harrow and Katrina and Vendetta and Emma Price, MH Kara, Sarah Davis, we've also got in there as well. Hi, Sarah. We've also got Russell. Hi, Russell. How you doing, mate? We've got Ghost Pouch, Yoni, and Jup James, and others. So if you'd like to join them in the chat, please do. Right, let's get to it. We're going to be talking about the war in Ukraine today, a war that's been raging for over 2.5 years now, since it started at the end of February 2022, when the Russian forces tried to take over Ukraine in a blitzkrieg that was supposed to be a special operation that would just take a few days. And here we are, 2.5 years later, and they're still attempting to do that same special operation. However, Russia has, let's admit it, have had some successes in this. It has managed to take one fifth of Ukrainian territory. That's quite an insane amount of territory for Russia to take. And they have enough people to just feed into the meat grinder for the rest of time, by the looks of things, grinding down Ukrainian forces who don't have an infinite supply of cannon fodder to throw at the bullets. Russia hasn't done as well as it thought it was going to do, but it hasn't done as badly as some of us hoped it would do when we were hoping that it would all end in tragedy for the Russian army. And don't forget, this battle, this war has actually been going on for 10 years. It was 2014 when Russia invaded Crimea and the Donbass region of Ukraine, the eastern Ukraine. And the world's response to that was kind of just to shrug its shoulders, the same response that we gave when a third of Georgia, the country of Georgia, was annexed by Putin in 2008 when he took South Ossetia and Abkhazia regions, claiming they were Russian-speaking regions and therefore they shouldn't be part of Georgia. This Russian-speaking land excuse is just insane, objectively insane, because by the same logic, Britain should be within its rights to just invade America or South Africa or Australia, or New Zealand, or Canada, or a bunch of other countries that have English as their primary language. They speak English in Jamaica. Quick, invade Jamaica. If you think about it for more than 5 seconds, it makes no sense whatsoever. But here's the point that I'm going to make this morning, and you feel free to argue against what I'm going to say. That's fine. We encourage healthy debate on this channel. We don't really necessarily have to agree on everything, because I feel like it's a bit boring. I think that Russia will be better off losing this war, not just for the people of Ukraine, but also for the people of Russia. And here's why. This morning, the news came through that a general who was in charge of the nuclear weapons of Russia, a guy called Igor Kirillov, Igor Kirillov, his name was, and it was blown up by a bomb hidden in a scooter. And which is just objectively quite funny. But I shouldn't really say that, should you? Because, no, I think I will. Because the man was a monster and he used chemical weapons, or ordered the use of chemical weapons, on Ukrainian soldiers, causing thousands of them to be hospitalized and many to die. Chemical weapons, which are banned, by the way, under the Geneva Convention. Anyway, so with this latest assassination, I mean, my first thought when the news came through and Ukraine had not said, yeah, that was us, was like, maybe Putin has found that all their nuclear bombs and missiles are just empty shells with a clock inside them to make a nice little ticking noise if you go too close. That's what I was hoping. But no, it was actually Ukraine who took him out. But this speaks volumes to the attitude of Ukrainians going forward. And as someone who's been to Ukraine and spoken to a lot of Ukrainians, helping Ukrainian refugees leave Ukraine and go live somewhere else until it was safer, they're not giving up. I just put it quite bluntly, they are never, ever giving up. Putin can take Kyiv. He can He can put the leader of Ukraine on a big show trial. He can, sentence him to death. It'll make no difference to the people of Ukraine who do not want to be under the yoke of Moscow. They don't want to be Muscovites. They don't want to be told what to do by a city that doesn't speak quite the same language as they do, literally thousands of miles away. They do not want that. And as a result of them not wanting it, and also the fact that Ukraine is a bloody big country with bloody big borders, and there are going to be sympathetic people to the west of Ukraine until, the heat death of the universe, it means that Russians will always have to sleep with one eye open, as I said in the description for this video. There's going to be no time in our lifetimes going forward if Russia has won in Ukraine and taken it over, won in inverted commas, and taken over, there's going to be no time when any official or just any person in Russia will be able to sleep soundly and not have to check under their car every time they go to work. Every time they take the kids to the supermarket or the playground or the school, they will have to check to see if there's a bomb in the car, because the Ukrainians are very good at, they're better than I would be at passing for Russian. And they have Russian people who sympathize with their cause as well. Russian people with Ukrainian heritage who are like, I don't like this Putin dude. And there's another point to this as well, which is that if Ukraine is completely taken over by Russia, then they're going to have to rebuild Ukraine because they've destroyed so much of the infrastructure. That's going to have to be rebuilt. So they're going to have to spend a lot of money on Ukraine. If they lose, they're going to have to pay reparations. But here's the difference, right? If they lose, the reparations that they pay, that'll be it. That'll be it. But what will happen if they win is that their infrastructure projects and the things they try and build will be sabotaged by the people of Ukraine who don't want to be under Russian rule. Russian guards walking up and down the streets, Russian police officers, Russian army types. They're all going to have to be on high alert all the time, because they're going to be in the middle of a country where literally the entire population of that country wants them dead. And you know as well as I do that if just one person wants you dead, that's a bit of a worry. Yeah, times that by a few tens of millions, okay? They all want you dead, and they will do anything in their power to make sure that happens. So, yeah, not only if they win will it be more... I'm saying win, because I don't think they'll ever win. Really, if they win militarily, they are never going to be able to subdue the people of Ukraine. Putin isn't hoping for that anymore, I don't think. I don't think that he wants to take over Kyiv. I think he's pushing for a peace deal, which will be brokered by his mate Trump, his puppet Trump. I could see a future where Putin and Elon Musk fight over who's the real puppeteer. Like in being John Malkovich. That's what's going to be like in Trump's head, with people controlling him, because he's such a weak, powerless idiot of a leader. He's a child in a man's body, in an incontinent man's body. And he cannot make any decisions himself. He's too lazy. He's too lazy to think for himself. So he gets other people to do his thinking for him. And there's a lot of people who think that they are the ultimate Trump puppet master. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I'm not saying it's going to be nice. I'm saying it's going to be interesting. May you live in interesting times. But I do feel like this is going to go some way to, this plan that Putin has, which I don't think is to overrun the whole of Ukraine, because that's never going to work. I think he's going to say, look, I want to keep my fifth of Ukraine, and I want to keep Crimea forever, and we'll call it a stalemate. But even that is no good for the people of Russia, because Ukraine is never going to accept that. Ukraine, even if the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, even if he says, seriously, I'll do it. I'll sign the peace deal. The people of Ukraine are still going to be blowing up Russians. They're still going to be attacking them left, right, and center for the rest of time. It's just going to continue happening. There's only one way that Vladimir Putin can secure peace for his own people in Russia. And that is by completely pulling out of Ukraine. And that includes the Crimea. That's what he needs to do in order to, but he won't guarantee the safety of Russian people because that will lose his safety. And he knows that because of the way Russia is set up, if he did pull out of Ukraine, then that'll be it for him. He would be defenestrated, as they say. Out the window for you, young man. And that's what I think is going to happen. Lol, the British and their use of the word blitzkrieg, lightning war. Vendetta says, what went through Kirilov's mind as his scooter blew up his arse? A literal jet bike, says Sarah. Katrina, if they haven't been maintained since Soviet times, they are not going to be operational anymore, says Katrina. Yeah, talking about nuclear weapons. And I've said this on this show before. I don't believe that they have any working nuclear weapons because they've done no nuclear tests, and their record. There's three reasons they've done no nuclear tests in the whole time that Putin's been in power. They are notoriously lax at maintenance. We've seen this across the board in the army and navy and air force. And finally, which is probably the most pertinent point here, is that the amount of money that Russia spends on its entire military operation, like not just in Ukraine, but just like the army, the services, the forces, the army, the navy, the air force, the entire amount of money they spend on it is matched by the amount of money that the US spend on maintaining their nuclear arsenal. So yeah, I just don't see it. And he's been saber rattling. Oh, I'm going to use nukes. It's been 2.5 years. He hasn't used nukes. I just think they're big empty shells, these missiles that they bring out and go, look, there's a missile. Yeah. Sorry, was it Or Canada or O Canada? Oh, Canada. What went through Kirillov? I've read that one. You could also argue that Russia would be better off in a post-Putin era, which inevitably is that what that withdrawal from Ukraine would achieve. Yes, exactly. This is what Putin has to wrestle with. He can either save his country or save himself. And of course, being a narcissistic ratbag, he will always save himself over the lives of his own people. And you kind of hope that one day people will wake up to this fact. But you know the way I feel. You know the way I feel, and I'm sorry for being, a bit pessimistic about all this. But this idea that people will wake up at some point is just, I don't know. I think it just puts pay to that idea, the fact that people haven't woken up to Brexit. The cost of a beer is doubled in the last few years. It has doubled. The price of a pint in a pub has doubled. And yet, where are the people waking up? The people who are now saying that Brexit hasn't worked are not saying it because it was a bad idea. They're saying it like Professor Tim did the other day. He said because it wasn't implemented properly. And, I hope I get to talk to Professor Tim again, because I would like to challenge him on that and say, explain to me in a way, imagine that I don't have a degree in politics and history, and imagine that I haven't actually been to every country in the world. Explain to me how Brexit could be a good idea. Just explain it, just really simply using one syllable words if you need to. Just really simple. Explain to me how it could work, because I think that Brexit is a bit like unfettered capitalism, is a bit like unfettered communism, where people try and justify the fact that these things just don't work by saying, oh no, but it was just implemented incorrectly. And you're like, tell me how to implement it. Because here's the thing with democracy, right? Democracy, as the man once sang, is an empty lie. And as Winston Churchill once said, it's the worst possible system apart from all the others. And he was absolutely right. But the thing is, with democracy, it's got a bit of what I've called redundancy, right? It's got a bit of give, right? So you can have different forms of democracy that work okay. Not brilliantly, I'm not going to say that, but, work okay in different countries, right? So some countries might work better with a parliamentary democracy. Some places might work better with a presidential, parliamentary or presidential. democracy, whereas other places might be more referendum driven, like in Switzerland, where there's loads and loads of referendums. People are really well informed and quite, up on their politics as a result. There are different types of presidential models, where there's some where the president is head of state, and that's about it. It just goes around opening supermarkets and attending boat races. And then you've got the American style system, where the head of the president is also the head of the army and the head of government and the head of state, which I venomously disagree with as a way of doing democracy, but it's a way of doing democracy. It's got some redundancy built in. Brexit has no redundancy because it's a bad idea from the start. Unfettered capitalism has no redundancy because it's a bad idea from the start. The same with communism. It's a bad idea from the start. People say to you at parties, especially when you're a bit younger, communism's a great idea on paper. It just doesn't work in practice. And you're like, no, it's a bad idea on paper. Because of reasons that I've already explained on this show, I've said it's a bit like, it is a bit like capitalism, unfettered capitalism. It doesn't take into account people's greed. Do you know what does take into account people's greed? Socialism. Socialism takes that into account because it goes, okay, look, some people are going to want more than others. Fine, okay, well, we're going to just temper that down. And if they are earning more or making more or inheriting more money than everybody else, then we are going to make sure that they pay their fair share into the big pot so that everyone benefits. And unfortunately, since the 1980s, Thatcher, Reagan and all that lot, we've lived under an era of pretty much unfettered capitalism where you could actually have Jacob Rees-Mogg's sister go on a show with Marina Perkis yesterday. Oh my God, did you see this? Where she'll go on and she'll defend the water companies and say on TV, this is a very, very posh, privileged white woman, privately educated. Her name is Anathusia or something. It sounds like a tropical disease. And she's on the TV going, the first obligation of any corporation is to its shareholders. Not to put like sewage in our waterways in our country. No. The first, in her little tiny little brain, her little in-bed brain, the most important thing in the world, the most important thing is the shareholders get their dividends. Because that's the moral obligation of any company, is to make a profit for its shareholders. Who might be in another country, by the way. Who might be, I don't know, in Canada. Might be in Canada. Might be making loads of money out of shit in our rivers. Well, not treating the shit and pumping it into the rivers and then using that extra money to pay dividends to their shareholders. But if you don't give dividends to your shareholders, then no one will invest. Well, no one's invested. Like, they've just borrowed loads of money on the back of the fact that there are monopolies that used to be run by the state, but not anymore. Not since 1990, I think. Was it 1990? They privatized the water companies and said, hey, it's the market now. The market will decide. The market will decide. The market will protect us all. Please come save us, the market. These so-called Christians like the Mogs who go, oh, please, we're going to pray. We're going, oh, children, get on your knees and pray. Pray to the market to do the right thing. Fuck, the market's going to do the right thing. Are you mad? Are you a bit daft? Are you bit soft in the head, are you? Is that... The market's going to do the right thing. You've got a fucking monopoly. It's not like I can go, I'm not bored of this Northumbria water, bastards, and they're not doing what I want them to do. I'm going to move to Thames Water instead, here in Durham. Or United Utilities, here in Durham. Yeah, I'm going to get a new pipe. I'm going to pay for a pipe from Liverpool to Durham so I can get some of that good old-fashioned Liverpool water. So I can have a choice. Maybe I'll have 4 taps, and 2 of them are from Northumbria Water, and 2 of them are for United Utilities. Maybe I'll have a little extra tap from Thames Water as well at the side. And I can choose when I get up in the morning which one goes into my kettle to make my cup of tea. Come on. But yeah, the posh, privileged dickheads will protect themselves. And they'll brainwash us all. They will brainwash us all. Don't forget the posh, privileged dickheads who absolutely dominate the media in this country. Like, everyone on TV is a posh, privileged dickhead, pretty much. If you ever see someone who grew up in a working class background, a real working class background, not like, oh, my mum's family were very working class. My dad's family were very working class. You go back a few years, we were all criminals. Yeah, all right, calm down, simmer down. If you go back a few years in Australia, everyone was a fucking criminal. Well done. But, the actual people who grew up in poverty, who went to a state comprehensive school and made it, they are so few and far between. I'm thinking of doing a new list to go with my private school mafia list, which is now at over 1,165 names. And still every day, someone will say something or do something obnoxious, and I'll be like, you arsehole. And I'll look them up. 99 times out of 100, they went to private school. Because that's why they're in the news. Because when privately educated people say something, it gets in the news. When you say something, it doesn't get in the news. When I say something, it doesn't get in the news. But, when posh, privileged people say something, it gets in the news. And they absolutely dominate our way of thinking in this country. And I'm not calling for a class war. I'm just calling us all to just acknowledge this fact. It's a bit like the history of slavery. I'm not saying that right now everyone who's white in this country needs to go and give a black person all of their money, okay? Don't be ridiculous. Nobody is saying that. But the least we can do, the very least, is acknowledge that this thing happened. Acknowledge that an awful thing happened in the past. And that we're going to work together to make sure it never happens again. Or at least, in a way, invest in countries that we have screwed over in the past. You don't have to call it reparations if it brings you out in hives, but I think there is an element of responsibility there, considering the fact that the insurance that the money that was paid out to the slave owners, not to the slaves, to the slave owners and the slave owning families, like the Dracks of this world and the Gladstones and all that lot, that money wasn't paid off till 2015. 2015, that loan was paid off. 2015. So don't pretend that this is like some far distant past that doesn't matter. When the British pulled out of Jamaica, less than 1% of the black population had gone to school. Because we didn't have schools for black people in Jamaica. We just had them for white people. In the 1960s. Nice? Unbefrickin-believable. Anyway, getting off the point here, we're supposed to be talking about Russia and Ukraine. Russia cannot win the war, but I'm sure Ukraine can win outright. Good point, Matthew. I agree with you to a certain extent that I don't think Ukraine can win this war in terms of just the battlefield. I don't think they can. But I think in the long term, they will absolutely win it. I will stake my reputation. I know that's not much, but I will stake my reputation on the fact that eventually Ukraine will win this because of the fact that I don't think they're going to stop fighting. And it'll become an IRA-like situation where everyone's scared to go shopping, everyone's scared to go to the pub because someone might blow them up. Who is it? It's Ukrainians. Who did this? Ukrainians. And there's a chance that Ukrainians might get joined by the Chechens. The Chechens? Like the Jetsons, George Chechens. By the Chechens. And also by the people of Dagestan. And there's a bunch of other wannabe breakaway republics around Russia. I mean, maybe some people in Georgia are just fed up of Russia's shit, interfering in their politics and, annexing a third of their land. And they might have a pop at them as well. So maybe Russia is going to face insurrection on all fronts. I mean, they could, but I just don't see Ukraine ever giving up. So I think in the long run, like who won in Vietnam? Well, the Vietnamese, the Viet Minh. We call them the Viet Cong to make them sound more bad, but they're actually called the Viet Minh. The Viet Minh totally won against America because they didn't want the Americans there. And it's the hardest war to fight is one where you are in someone else's country and those people don't want you there. Look at Iraq. Look at Afghanistan. Afghanistan, where the Americans and the British failed. 20 years we spent in Afghanistan losing thousands of soldiers for nothing. The Taliban is still in charge. Nothing has changed. Still banning women from talking, meeting, looking at each other, having a face in public. And then you've got, before then, the Soviets. One of the reasons why the Soviet Empire collapsed was because of the failure in Afghanistan. And they pulled out their troops in the late 80s after invading the country and just getting bogged down there. So, and before then, there was 3 separate Anglo-Afghan wars, and Afghanistan essentially won all of them. Britain thought they won for a little bit, but they didn't. There was one incident in the 1830s, I think, the end of the 1830s, might be in the beginning of the 1840s. It was a long time ago, I can barely remember. I was very drunk. And Lord Elephantstone, was it? No, that's a Stone Roses song. I think it was Lord Elephantine, might have been. Someone look it up. And there was the march out of Kabul, and essentially a couple of thousand people, British people and their servants, and their wives and their children. They left to Kabul to get safe passage to what's now Pakistan, and they got picked off one by one. And there was one survivor, who was Harry Flashman. No, that's not right. Okay, anyway, the point being, the Afghanistan was called the graveyard of empires for a reason, and I think that Ukraine is going to pull the same trick in Europe, because they are an advanced nation that do not want these invaders in their country. As simple as that. They don't want them there, and they will never accept them there. There will never come a day when they're like, all right, then, yeah, it's fine. You only killed 66,000 of us, so, you can stay. It's not going to happen. And here's the thing. The Russians can end the war tomorrow. Putin can end the war tomorrow. He can just leave the country. There you go. Got your peace. He can declare peace tomorrow. The Ukrainians can't. If they give up their weapons, the Russians will march all the way to Kyiv, all the way to Lviv in the west of the country, and they'll, kill anyone who gets in their way. So, yeah, you can either have carnage or peace. And if one side puts down their weapons, you'll have peace. And if you have the other side put down their weapons, put down their weapons and go home, you'll have peace. And the other side put down their weapons and go home, there'll be carnage. There'll be an absolute genocide. But there you go. Sorry, got to go to a doctor's appointment. Oh, bye, Sarah. It's okay. Your book's on the way. Russia cannot fight on more than one front. That's why they didn't try and stop it in Syria. That is true. Russia is just waiting for military support to waver. Yeah, Ian. And honestly, let's grasp that nettle. I think it will. I think that military support is for Ukraine will diminish. I think that countries in Europe will try to continue to prop them up, but we have we have incredible worries over here. So here's the situation. We've got, first of all, Trump wants to pull out of NATO, and he probably will, because that's what his puppet master Putin wants him to do, and he will do whatever he's told to do by Putin. You've got Farage on the rise in the UK. You've got the AfD on the rise in Germany, and now there's going to be elections. A snap election in Germany, which is worrying, and they're very much pro-Putin. Obviously, Nigel Farage, the traitorous, toad-faced cunt that he is, he's very much going to. So I've just demonetized the video. Someone wants to throw a super chat in to account for the fact that I just demonetized the video when getting angry about the continued existence of Nigel Farage. He'll do whatever Putin tells him to do, because he's a Russian asset. We've known this for years. That's why he met up with the Russian ambassador. That's why he pushed for Brexit, because that's what the Russians wanted us to do. So we've got that, and we've got the rise of the far right in France, and in any country, and they've already taken over in Italy, and any country that is taken over by the far right will be on Putin's side, because he is a fascist, and fascists tend to migrate together like people with ADHD. I can see big problems ahead for Ukraine, not least because the funding is going to dry up from America, but also the funding may dry up from certain state sponsors in Europe as well, as a result of gobshites getting into power. However, my point still stands, is like, even if they say, okay, we can't win this, and put their hands up, the insurgency against the Russians will never end. It will never end. And so Russia will never feel safe there. And it will make Russia the whole Ukrainian invasion turn into a failed project, a bit like you could argue that Israel is a failed project to give a homeland to Jews that makes them feel safe. After thousands of years of persecution, finally a homeland where we can feel safe. Unfortunately, no one in Israel can feel safe, because Israel just continues to Murder its neighbours. It's not the best way of going about achieving safety. Just saying. Right. Okay. So Elephantstone. Is that Elephantstone? Is that the way it's pronounced? I'm sure that's a Stone Roses song. The West should grow a spine, says one angry pagan. I asked you a few months ago, should we be preparing for World War III? You laughed. I don't remember that. But if I did, okay. Also, you don't get people from the continent away to fight on your war when you are stable. Yes, exactly. Sorry, you don't get people from the continent away to fight in your war when you're winning or when you're stable, indeed. Sorry, my light's just gone out here. I don't know why. Turn back on, light. That's why you should never buy lights from... That's why you should never buy lights. It's telling me that I've gone over time. There we go. Hey, there you go. There you go. Paul, thank you very much for the super chat, Paul. I got the light back on, and Paul has generously dropped £5 into the super chat fund. Thank you very much, Paul. I thought we only funded Supertansky Sea Bombs. We haven't done an episode of the swear jar for nearly a year now. I'm going to have a word with Tan. Elphinstone, pronounced Elphinstone. There you go. I knew it wasn't elephants. That's why Fartage was knighted by a child on RT. Oh my God, did that happen? Jesus. War is peace, peace is war. No, not really. Peace is peace. And it's something that we should all be gunning for. We should all want peace. What's the only way to have peace in Ukraine is for the Russians to leave Ukraine. That's it. That's your roadmap to peace right there. Anything else, any kind of deal, ceasefire, pause in operations is just going to lead to more carnage in the future. There is a simple solution to the issue that a country has invaded another country, and that's for that country to get the fuck out of the country that it's invaded. And whether that's Ukraine or whether it's Israel in Gaza, it doesn't matter. It's wrong. It's against international law, and women and children bear the brunt of it. Innocent people bear the brunt of it. And it's, we truly need more swear jar, lol. Yeah, I'll have a word with Tan, see if we can put something together. Something very Cold War about Farage, says Captain. Yes, he is. But they aren't going to leave, says Ian. Yeah, that's why you had to force them to leave. I mean, you could have said the same about the Soviets in Afghanistan in the 1980s, or the British and the Americans in Afghanistan in the 2000s and 2010s. I mean, they're never going to leave. They're never going to leave. Yeah, they left. Because at some point, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it for Putin to have a chunk of Ukraine that's just going to give him headaches every day and see his most prized generals and people that he, hangs out with, his buddies, not that Putin, Freudian slip there. Not that Putin has any real friends, because he's killed them all. How bad is Tan's and our language going to be after 4 more years of Trump? And Politics Joe is going on about Farage being the next PM. Seriously. Yeah, I think Uncle Phil will have some words about that on Friday. Because when I suggested that Farage might join the Tory party at some point, he's like, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So, yeah, he's definitely not going for that. Alistair, thank you very much. My donation to my donation to my swear jar donation to you, Graham. Thank you so much, Alistair. That's very kind of you. And also David Faulkner, all the way from Hong Kong. Thank you to David there. The EU could in future be named the GU, the Global Union, and new members, Britain, Ukraine, Georgia, Russia, America, and China, all join. I remain a globalist, one nation, one earth, no more death, no war. That would be nice, but people have different ways of doing things in this world. And it's embarrassing, really, considering we are just a speck of dust in the grander scheme of things. And the idea that people are dying in droves over possession of one tiny bit of this tiny speck of dust is a bit dispiriting. And Russell Cannon there, swear jar tip. Oh, thank you so much, Russell. That's very kind of you for the super chat. All right, brilliant. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it at that. I will return this evening with the first Geoscope for a while, me and Ollie. We'll be putting Bowler Hatman. We'll be putting the world to rights. We'll be talking about the situation in Ukraine. We'll be talking about Trump a little bit, and we'll be talking about the fact that Javier Milei's horrific reforms in Argentina arguably are working. Which is a question that I asked earlier this year when Milei swept to power. I was like, what if the things that he wants to do actually work? However, it has plunged millions of Argentinians into poverty, and crime is up, and people are dying of preventable diseases. So there's that. But, you know, if you just look at the GDP, which is how much the rich are earning, then it's doing great. Let's get into that later. So if you'd like to join us at 7:30 tonight for Geoscope, you are very welcome to do so. And then we will segue seamlessly into Max's stream. If he's doing one, he should be doing one tonight at 8:30. So yeah, please join us for that. And until next time, I'll say thank you very much for watching. Thanks for the super chats. And hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.